this off in 1 second. All right, welcome to the Mortgage Coach Friday Mastermind. Every Friday, and it seems like every Friday it's Dave Savage and Todd Bookspan. Neither one of us are traveling, and dude, we're here every single Friday. It's good to see you, brother.
You know, it is great to be seen. We're on a roll, and it's always fun to get to hang out and have a little conversation with you. I feel like, you know, everything that you've been doing right now with the crazy number of really great interviews you've been doing, there's just a lot for us to talk about.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a great call, guys. We have Dan Rawitch joining us in about 20 minutes. He had an engagement, couldn't be on the first 20 minutes of the call, but we will dedicate the second half of this call to Dan Rawitch providing a market update for June 2020. Tremendous amount of volatility in the market, and just bring you guys clarity, you know, how to turn changes in the market and market moves into your competitive advantage, you know, and Dan is also really focused on turning you into a mortgage mentor, like, so you can be the mentor to your realtor and to clients that you serve. So to kick off the theme of today's call, I think everything is gonna fit under this bridge of how to be the most valuable loan officer in America to families and to realtors. Like, what does that mean? How do you be the most valuable to everybody that you serve? So I am going to kick it off with a story, and I'm going to kick it off with a strategy that I'm going to hand it off to Todd. But I want you guys to engage and really think about this. Like today, Friday, think about, am I the most valuable mortgage professional I could possibly be? Because I do believe if you can be the most valuable, you will be the most successful. You know, people will be attracted to you. You'll have high conversion rates. You'll get more referrals. When you meet with a realtor, you'll be more attractive. It just all comes down to, how do I be more valuable? So I'm gonna kick it off with a story that I heard from Brian Morley. He is a top producer, does over $100 million a year in volume out of Columbia, which is just 20 minutes outside of Baltimore. He works for a bank called Fulton Bank. And Brian is buying a house on the coast in Delaware. I don't know, let's say an hour drive from his house. He's going to buy a new house. And he said, you know what, I'm going to use this as an opportunity and shop some of my competition. So he reached out to 5 different lenders, went through their online app experience, had conversations with them, and shopped them. And he shared some takeaways. So that was one of the interviews that I did this week, is I interviewed him. So top producer, shops his competition. What were the lessons learned? So that interview is available in our YouTube channel. So check it out. It's like a 30-minute conversation. But here were some takeaways, guys. Here were some of the most important lessons learned. And I'm going to share a couple slides because we created some slides of what he got. And so the first thing that he was blown away by was that no one asked him any questions. Like, no one asked anything beyond, oh, you want a 30-year fixed rate? Here's a product. No one gave him any options, and no one understood what his real estate goals were. And he's got over 5 mortgages on his credit report. So this guy who owns real estate, is buying a home. No one just asked, like, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your goals? Nobody. And these were some big lenders. We blocked out the logo so the logos don't show up. Everybody gave a rate, a term, cash to close. A couple of them were branded with logos. A few of them were not branded. I mean, this is a really well-known fintech. Every one of these lenders, you would know them. You know, they're big players, all top 100, a couple top 10 lenders. The speed to lead was a little rough. No one really crushed it from a speed to lead perspective. But I just thought it was super interesting that no one asked him what his goals were. I don't know, Todd, how common do you think that is out there in the marketplace where loan officers aren't asking families what their goals are?
You know, I think if you're talking to anyone in a call center who doesn't have the experience and isn't part of a community like this, I don't think it's that uncommon. I interviewed a Quicken loan officer last week, and she's one of the top loan officers, she told me, and she was doing purchases for January and February, she said, then they switched her over to refis. She works from 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m., at least 5 days a week, she said. And I sort of thought, gosh, you must be crushing it, like closing a ton of loans. Any guess what number of loans someone closing that many loans 5 months in the year, or working that many hours at Quicken would have closed 5 months into the year?
A lot. I mean, a ridiculous amount.
42.
Oh, not that
41.
many.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by it, and she's one of their top people. And so what that tells me is that they're not that efficient in those conversations, right? Their conversion isn't as good as we would all think it is. And, you know, I got to imagine it'll pick up a little bit because she started a little later in the refi game, but she probably has a decent pipeline, she implied, but not anything crazy. I thought, gosh, you probably closed 200 loans and, you know, you're really cruising, because I know they only do that initial call, but yeah, you know, it's the speed to lead surprises me out of a call center with a purchase app coming in.
Well, they weren't all call centers. So, you know, it was a combination of, just call it, you know, top 10 lenders that would have a call center and a distributed retail and distributed retail. So they were not all call centers. Although the one that hadn't returned his calls, so he had shopped 6, he gave me 5 fee worksheets because one hadn't gotten back to him yet. And they were, you know, a call center, big player. So guys, I mean, it really comes down to, you want to be the most valuable. You gotta be timely, because you're not valuable if people have to chase you. You have to ask people what their goals are, and you have to give people options. You know, it made me go back and look at the interview I did with Dale Vermillion, and I put a post in our Facebook group. It's at the top of our Facebook group right now, and I'll show it in a minute. But it just talks about options. And Dale makes a really good case that if you give someone like, hey, here's the loan I could do, and it's a fee worksheet, and it's not options, they don't own it. You know, there's no ownership over that. They're going to be more likely to shop it. But the minute you give them options and they pick one of them, they're now emotionally and intellectually invested. And it's a valuable option. So you got to give options. You've got to analyze the cost of different options over the time that the family has goals around. So if they want to buy a bigger home or another home in X date, that should be one of those times. If they want to have their home paid off by a certain time, you need to have that. So number 1, options. Number 2, analyze over different windows of time. And then number 3, the 3 essentials to making a smart mortgage decision is analyze strategies to pay off the debt faster. So I posted this in our Facebook group. I've had a number of people reach out and say, hey, I love that. Actually, it's not going to show. Well, maybe it'll show up right here. Discussion. I'm in our Facebook group, guys. But also do want to note a really valuable thing that happened to the mortgage coach community this week is we released our integration to HomeBot into the wild. So that is now something that if you have HomeBot and Mortgage Coach, in less than 1 minute, you can turn on that integration. I'll put a link in a minute down below, but check that out. And then you'll see some, oh, there it is. No, that's not it. I'm scrolling down looking for this graphic. I'll put it and I'll post it up top, but here it is right here. I asked how many people at the point of sale are going through these 3 essentials. So 1, I urge everybody in this group, you can copy this and you can make this yours. You can publish it. And I also recommend everybody in this room author something, like have your own version of this. What are the 3 essentials to a smart mortgage decision that you believe in? And hopefully it's not just transactional education. You know, I think most loan officers, when I audit their pre-approval experience, they spend a lot of time educating on the transaction. And I think you should do some education on the transaction. Just know that that's not unique, and it doesn't make you uniquely valuable to people. You've got to go beyond the transaction. Todd, any other thoughts or comments?
Well, I think it's so critical. So I did a Win by Noon class for our RE/MAX office yesterday, and I walked them through, again, how to be productive from home, and walked them through the ideal week that I teach a lot. And of course, I got to the part where I talked about real estate reviews, and then of course I plug HomeBot, and then I talk about, well, loan officers do annual mortgage reviews. I said, are any of you familiar with a tool called a total cost analysis? And I said, well, it's from a company called Mortgage Coach, and there was only 1 real estate agent who raised her hand. And then the broker owner said, well, tell me about that, Todd, because wanted to learn a little bit more about what was going on with that. And I was just perplexed that of this big group of successful agents that only one of them has seen it and has a loan officer who uses a great tool like that. And so it kind of gave me this idea of kind of playing off of what you're saying is why not offer up to your real estate community a education, take Dave's 1, 2, 3 steps he just laid out, and then teach them what the expectation should be of their clients to have the best mortgage experience, and walk them through your process. Because we know when you walk them through their process, they're going to think, gosh, that's not how my loan officer's doing. It's going to be a great way for you, number one, to educate, tell your story, and then 2, hopefully get more real estate agents who are going to refer you business. I just think it's a missed opportunity. And I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective of teaching around that conversation. I definitely believe in teaching around the client experience. We've heard Ryan Grant talk about that here in the community. But I think when you take it to this next level and really just go around that hopes and dreams conversation and really dig in with the tool, I don't think realtors hear and they think that's cool, but I think you need to see it. They need to see it. You need to show it to them. And this is a perfect time to do it because you can do it on Zoom. It's super easy. You don't need to worry about whether they got a big screen TV or something live in their office. I think Zoom is a great way to do it. And you got time now, and so do they.
Yeah, no, I love that. I do think it's a great conversation to have with realtors, how to be the most valuable realtor, and breaking that down. And by the way, that would be a great mastermind, Zoom mastermind to do with your agents, where you guys, get the right realtors on a Zoom meeting and you all brainstorm around how to be the most valuable agent. And you bring in mortgage coach and the things that we teach as part of that process. But if anybody has slides that you're using at the point of sale, so at the, within your first meeting with a client where you're telling them your value prop, you're providing your initial level of education. If you do have slides that you're using, please share those with me. Either, email them to me, put them in our group. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to come out with 5 to 10, call it mortgage coach slides that we think are the best practice conversation. You don't have to even show the slides. Maybe they're just talking points for you, because there's a time to show a slide. And then there's a lot more times where you just want to be face-to-face, connecting with people, telling them stories and explaining strategies. But we're gonna come up with a bit of a roadmap that we think positions you as the most valuable mortgage professional and educates the customer at the same time why and how you're the most valuable loan officer. So Todd, anything else? What are some other things that come to your mind that make someone the most valuable versus the average app taker?
Well, I'm going to give a quick plug for the Mortgage Coach HomeBot integration. I think most of you know that there's a discount code you can use for Win by Noon. It's just WBN Lender. If you use that with HomeBot when you sign up, it waives their $200 activation fee, and they've got a WBN agent code, which will waive your agent's activation fee. So that's just a great way to get started if you're not currently using HomeBot. But the integration is awesome. We got put in the beta test, kind of towards the end. My team did. And then the first batch of emails that went out over a weekend on Sunday, client pinged our team asking for a TCA. Ours is set up where it's got an hour delay so that we can go in there and tweak it. Loan officer went in there and tweaked it, and then it shot back out to the client. They didn't put a video on it, which would have been the real pro tip, but ultimately followed up with an email saying, hey, I just want to make sure you received it, and I'd love to jump on the phone with you. Client called on Monday morning to go over the TCA, and the loan's in process Monday afternoon. And it was just the easy button. I always believe that HomeBot's a great tool to create client engagement. And I think when you add the mortgage coach integration on top of it, it takes it way off the chart. So good job, Dave. That's pretty sweet.
Thank you. And for all you joining us at Zoom, we apologize. We forgot to hit the broadcast button at the beginning. So we've been going for about 15 minutes.
We were brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, it was the most valuable 15 minutes in the history of Mortgage Coach. This is being recorded, so it will be, first 15 minutes will be in our YouTube channel later today. And you can also watch the recording in Facebook. So for all you on Facebook, you don't even know what I'm talking about. You were there the whole time. But for all of our Zoom audience, we apologize for not hitting that button. So remember, guys, this is a mastermind. So if you have questions for Todd or I, we got about another 14 minutes before the special guest of the day, Dan Rawitch, comes in. If you have questions for Todd or I, we will field those. And if you have questions for Dan, we will field those as well. Todd, you had
So
something?
let me throw another takeaway from this mastermind I did with these Remax agents yesterday. My other takeaway was, and you guys know it, I think it's like LO 101, is that you are committed to a day of the week where you're doing things, you're doing your weekly update calls. I was sort of shocked the same thing happened when I asked them about update calls. So I was teaching them that on Tuesdays, they should be reaching out proactively to their clients who are in escrow and giving them updates. And I said, awesome. I said, hopefully you are working with a win by noon loan officer who's giving you updates on, a specific day of the week. And ironically, the broker, she laughed. And so I called her out on it. She says, well, I do mine on Wednesdays, Todd. And the reason I do mine on Wednesdays is because my loan officer says they're going to do them on Tuesdays, but they don't always do it. And so therefore, I actually wait till Wednesday to do mine so I can call them and then get the update when they forget. And I thought, gosh, that's rookie moves. If you're making that commitment, right? The reason I say you should kind of, put your flag in the ground and say, hey, this is the day of the week that I'm going to call you realtor, call you listing agent, call you client, call you transaction coordinator, is so they have that expectation. And it kind of deflated me because I actually know who our loan officer is, and they're actually a great team. They're a high producing team. And in fact, to hear that just was like, man, like you guys are so good, but you're missing the opportunity to be great. And so I would be looking at, Dave talked about this whole idea of client experience. I'd be looking at your client experience for holes. Like, where do you think that you and your team could tighten up? Because when I hear something that I view as a basic, maybe I'm wrong, Dave, but I think our community, that's like proactive updates to our clients and process is like a given, but maybe not.
No, I think it is. And I think another thing that people miss is that when you think of being the most valuable, it doesn't mean it takes more time. It saves time in a lot of cases. And you use the total cost as an example. It does not take more time to give a family a TCA. Now, if you've done it less than 10 times or you do it for 1 out of 10 families, it does probably take you more time because you haven't got great at it. Things is simple, is asking a family for a referral. Like, one of my favorite ideas and takeaways I've gotten this entire year in 2020 was Jeremy Forcier saying, you know what, I'm waiting until a client says thank you within the loan process, like an active client says thank you, usually at clear to close or approval. And then I strategically, thoughtfully, consistently ask for a referral at the same time. Guys, if you think about it, it's easy to do, it's easy not to do. Does it make him more valuable to that client? Absolutely. I mean, if someone refers someone to you and then you help that person, you become more valuable to them. So asking strategically is easy to do, easy not to do, doesn't take more time. And that one simple strategy is like more loans. And I know that because it not only works for Jeremy, and I think he closed over 70 loans in May, like in a ridiculous number of business. And he says that he's getting even more leads from that strategy because he's getting better at it. He does it consistently. I'm going to put a link down below to the 2-minute soundbite we have in our YouTube channel. So if you're on this call and you have not heard that, listen to Jeremy describe the strategy, describe the script. And if you've heard it and you're like, oh yeah, I know about that, I'd ask you, like, are you doing it? Like the past 5 times someone has said thank you to him, have you properly asked them for it? And then one more nuance on this and hand it back to you, Todd. I've had a number of people that are like, oh yeah, Dave, I'm doing that Jeremy thing and it's not working. And I'm like, really? Well, tell me about it. I go, well, the person says thank you, and then I give the script to them. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's not what Jeremy's doing. He's doing it with an email. And then I've had some people go, oh yeah, I'm doing that Jeremy 4C thing at the point of sale. I'm asking everybody for a referral. I'm like, what? Wait a minute, that's not what Jeremy's doing. He's waiting until they say thank you, and then he is cutting and pasting an email. And so 3 different times people have told me they're doing it. And when I asked them, like, okay, well, describe it to me, they weren't doing what he said he was doing. And in all 3 situations, within a week, they're like, oh my God, I'm doing it the way Jeremy's doing it, Whitney's doing it, and I'm getting business, oh my God. So that's the other thing is, like, when something is working so well and it's so simple, sometimes it's better not to like play with it and change it. It's just like, oh, let's take that, what's working, let's apply it. And then after it's working and we have a baseline, now let's adjust it and fine tune it. I have so many people. I had a guy say, oh yeah, I'm doing that. I'm giving people bomb videos. And I'm like, wait a minute. I love BombBomb videos, and there's a time for BombBomb videos asking for referrals, but not everybody watches the video. It's not the same strategy. So again, I'll put a link down below. Todd, any thoughts on that? Have you or your team started implementing that? Put you on the spot.
No, it's funny that you say that. I'm laughing at myself because I got a thank you email from a past client who one of my team members helped. And I said, oh, awesome. And I made some comment about referrals. And I'm like a moron. I have Jeremy's script. It's actually saved as a signature in my email, and I didn't send it. So now I'm like, my action plan is as soon as we leave here, I'm going to send that email, even though I sent a different email yesterday. I'm just going to send the Jeremy one and see how it goes. I've got it. And I just, since I'm not in the game quite like you guys are, I haven't had that opportunity. But I think what you said is so much of what we teach in here, like Scriptapalooza and all the interviews that you do, is take what these people are doing and try it. Try it lock, stock, and barrel the way that they do it, right? That's what swipe and adapt means. And then, like Dave said, then you can tweak it, right? Then you customize it for you. But ultimately, I think the challenge is we spend too much time trying to customize it up front, and then therefore we fail to deploy it. And it's the whole idea that, you just have to get out there and make imperfect action versus delaying perfect action, because perfect action typically never happens. And so I think that's, again, it just really brings me back to when you're talking about Jeremy's script, right? That's Bill Hart talked about the 4 R's. He talked about when you're talking to a real estate agent right now during COVID, and I realize some of you are in places that your real estate agents are out and about, here in Arizona where people are out and about. In fact, we have a crazy spike right now in cases of coronavirus because people are out and real estate agents are meeting, and it's like kind of back to normal for them. But we still find that about 2/3 of them are saying, no, I'm actually still doing things virtual. Someone asked me in here in Zoom if I was that mastermind was live or virtual. It was virtual. I still think that virtual masterminds have play, a little less play now if you're in an area that's opened up. But there's just so many things that are in this community that you could put out there if you just spend a few minutes, right? Schedule a jam session like Dave and I talk about, and just say, gosh, what is it going to take me? Because to do Jeremy's email, it's in the group here. Just search, Jeremy thank you email. It'll probably show up. And you could get that in 3 minutes, maybe 5 if you're slow at finding it. But I think that's really it, Dave. I mean, I think this group, they're such a great group. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir from the people who are here, especially the people who are here live, but certainly some of you are watching on video. I just think you've got this great opportunity to come in. Oh, there it is right there. You put it in the group. Dave, you are so good. Like Dave's really good at multitasking and behind the scenes, and I'm just not.
All right, guys. So yeah, I put it in the chat. It's less than 2 minutes. Watch it when this is over. I put a link to the CEO of HomeBot and I showing you how to turn on the HomeBot integration. Also, I put a link to the HomeBot service page on how to turn on the integration for anybody that has it. Todd will put a link for anybody that is not on the HomeBot team, which I believe is one of those tools that if you want to be the most valuable loan officer to homeowners and you want to be the most valuable loan officer to realtors, add it to the list. Like, you can be valuable without it. You can't be the most valuable. You can be valuable without giving a family a total cost analysis. You can't be the most valuable loan officer. So let's start teeing up Dan. He'll be here any minute. I'm gonna frame market updates and what Dan's gonna do like this. Like, I think if you're playing the game, I want to be the most valuable loan officer to families. You need to understand the economy and its impact on interest rates at a certain level. Like, you do not need to be a nerd about it, but you need to be able to make the case and explain to them at the point of sale that rates don't change daily or weekly. They don't change hourly. They can change by the minute. And, that's why we have the Rate Watch app. We have the Rate Watch app. So literally you can tell them what I just said. You can say it and you can show it, all within a matter of seconds. You could show them the day watch. You could show them what's going on. So to say something, show something, that's how you become valuable. It's also important that as there are changes, and we've had a lot of volatility in the market, and that's one of the reasons why you asked Dan to come in to kick off June. You're like, bro, what's happening? And what do you think June's gonna look like? And what are the specific talking points that I, as a mortgage professional that wants to be the most valuable, what conversation should I be having with realtors right now? So Todd, I know we're going to bring in Dan in a few minutes and he'll be the market expert, but what are just some of the, call it the sales skills and the you know, you're Mr. Win by Noon. What are some of the win by noon things that you're teaching to your community so that they can be the most valuable when it comes to market and rates?
Well, I mean, I think you've got to be watching Dan's updates, right? So I'm a member of his market mentor service where he does actually a morning update and an afternoon update. And I'll tell you, I'm the first one to say I'm coaching my Win by Noon users not to be sucked in live in the morning and live in the afternoon. Like a day like yesterday where the market's doing crazy stuff, that's okay. But I'm encouraging them to go back after hours and learn it or do it as part of their morning, getting ready, because ultimately you have an opportunity to sound smarter than everyone else by being educated on what's going on in the market. And so really in the end, Dave talked about it, right? I mean, have the Rate Watch app on your phone, share it with your partners, when you're doing your updates to them weekly or biweekly or whatever your schedules with them, take advantage of the knowledge that you have to help them understand what's going on. And your job isn't to train them to be the expert. Your job is to show them that you're the expert, give them enough knowledge so that they feel comfortable talking to their client about it, up to the point they say, gosh, you know what? You got to call my loan guy, Dave Savage. He is so good and he understands all this stuff and he'll explain it to you. Because right now we just know that our clients care about what's going on in the market. And so for me personally, I'm a member of both Dan's market mentor group. I get his newsletter, which I love to read every Monday. It's a little bit crazy and it's actually kind of scary when you see Dan's newsletter. And then I'm also part of his options group, but again, I'm not on there watching his stuff every day. He sends these little things through about making trades. And so, I'm just watching his recommendations. And then on the weekend, I actually download it. I watch it on 1.5 speed on my computer. And then I watch what I missed during the week because I'm trying to become even more knowledgeable. So I think that's the whole idea of you taking time, scheduling time to educate yourself, not between the hours of 8 and 5 when you should be working. That's a great before or after activity. And I think that, you being a little smarter than everyone else goes back to where Dave started this conversation, right? Where he had someone that made calls to 5 lenders and none of them had a high level hopes and dreams conversation. None of them showed him a total cost analysis and none of them really kind of knew what was going on in the market. So, obviously plug for Dave and kudos for him and what Dan's providing each week, but you've got this great opportunity to be the market expert. And I see Dan Rawitch popping up here on my screen, so I'm going to shut up.
No, keep going. I'm loving it. I'm eating it up.
The man, the myth. So guys, this is a mastermind. If you have questions for Dan along the way, whether you're in Zoom, put them down below. If you're watching it in Facebook Live and you're live, put them down below. And if you're watching the recording, we will get to your questions. So Dan, we have teed you up. We have framed what you're going to do. I think, the only thing I would add is the concept that you're going to teach, like what's happening in the market, how to turn that into an advantage, like this week or next week, and then advice on how they can become a market mentor to their realtors and homeowners. So if you could kind of close out with some thoughts on they want to be a market mentor, how can they do that?
Yeah.
You ready to roll, bro?
Perfect. Redirect me at any point. I sometimes go, whoop. So
we like that, Dan, when you do that. There's always knowledge in there. Those are the nuggets.
I kind of said that yesterday because one of our members sent me the coolest note ever. He said you were going through some chart actually during the Market Mentor live update, and I pulled up this chart, and he said, and you said under your breath, you looked at the chart and you said, that's a really ugly chart. If you want to short something, short that one. And he said, I did that morning and I made $1,500 so that day. So that was kind of cool. I said, I got to learn how to tap into those mumbling things and make those more real. So I think you're onto something, Todd. Okay, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. And let's see here. There we go. That's better because then I can see myself smaller, not bigger. You get a certain age, you rather see yourself under a certain kind of lens. All right, where do I start? Let's start just with kind of a quick rate update and maybe a little bit of technical information. And Dave, what are you thinking, like 20 minutes?
Yeah, that's good. Give us a 20-minute update, and that gives us a little time for Q&A.
Okay, cool. So let's see. I got to move this over here. Sorry if I'm not looking at the camera, but then it's in my way. Maybe I might even take myself off. No, I'll put myself down here. All right. So I'm going to start by cleaning up the chart, and we're going to start from literally nowhere. All right. So here's a nice clean chart This is the TLT Treasury Bond. As you can see, it's down about $1.50 today. Has a lot to do with the stock market being up 375 points. We were not surprised by this run up for a couple of reasons, and I'll start with this as the reason. So what you're seeing here is a pitchfork, and Pitchfork is an incredibly accurate tool. And I actually, some of you have heard me talk about a gentleman by the name of Andrew Pincelli. Andrew Pincelli is the world-renowned cycle guy. This guy has spent his life studying cycles, and he's built software around every time a world event has happened that could have any kind of impact more than just, oh, big deal. It's put into something called a histogram. And the histogram shows up and gives you kind of clear ideas of what's coming. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. And so I honestly have never been a big Pitchfork guy, but you know, so Andrew's information, the only way that I used to get it was getting it from friends on the Chicago trading floor. He sells this data that he does for between 50 and 200,000 a year, depending on the size of the hedge fund, how much reports they want. He does like historic cotton, historic oil reports, historic whatever. And he's recently made that information fairly affordable to people like me. So I don't have to just steal it from a fund manager whenever I can get my hands on it. Now I get it monthly. And then, you know, Andrew mentioned that he had a course that taught how to trade based on these cycles. And, you know, a little ego gets in the way. It's like, I've been doing this 40 years. You're going to tell me how to read a chart? And then when I realized just how incredibly accurate his cycles were, and I've known that for years, and I've made some money on these cycles, but not to the full extent. And I started thinking, you know, if there's a trick I can learn, I'm ridiculous for not spending the money. The course was like $2,500. And what I learned actually was probably worth 100 times that. And in fact, it's already paid off in great droves. Yesterday was a huge day for us in a good way. So, and I'll show you the cycle report in a second. But first, the Pitchfork, the most interesting thing that I learned. So the Pitchfork was developed by a guy named Dr. Andrews. Dr. Andrews spent his life studying the Pitchfork, which I know is funny. And he has proved with empirical data that when price enters Pitchfork, there is an 82 to 84% chance it will touch the middle of the Pitchfork. Just think about that. Where do you get those odds? And so, of course, I back tested it a million different ways and drawn pitchforks going back to 08, 07, 05, whatever, you know, all through history. And I have found absolutely the vast majority of the time when price comes into the pitchfork, 82 to 84% chance is going to go to the middle. So when we looked at the S&P and we saw this formation and we realized that, you know, we were in the pitchfork, and unless it broke out of the pitchfork, well, then, of course, all rules are off. But that it was following the pitchfork down, that we became very convinced that we would hit the middle of the pitchfork. And, you know, I was sort of bearish anyway. So I'm not going to necessarily go into how you would trade this, but, you know, just in a 30-second notice, if I wanted to short the S&P right now, I would enter it on this candlestick. I would exit it. You know, I wouldn't push it all the way to the center line. I would push it to where the support area is. And I can tell you here that that trade would have a 2.5% risk with an 8.8% target profit. And if I pulled it all the way down to the, and this is really interesting, you guys, look where the middle of the pitchfork hits. If this doesn't like make you go, whoa. And these things always line up so perfect, it scares me. I've been long time saying that this market would test the lows. And the 82 to 84% chance says price gets down here and tests this low to the middle of pitchfork. Now, if that happened, oh my gosh, you know, then we have a 25% return against a 2% risk, which is a 10-to-1 ratio. We always shoot for 3-to-1 in trading. Okay, getting a little digressing a bit. Point is that we're in the pitchfork. It's clear to me that the S&P is going to continue falling. When we entered the pitchfork, oddly enough, at the same time, I'll do bonds for you, the actual 10-year bonds instead of TLT, because I think it'll help you. So if I remove this and I draw them a pitchfork, then what I'm looking to see is what kind of an upward slope will happen, and where do I think bonds are going to go. And so essentially, if you draw this from the top and then you draw it to the bottom here, you've got your pitchfork. Let me pull this down now. That's kind of scrunchy. So we're in the pitchfork. So we sort of know there's an 80 to 82% chance that we're going to reach the center of the pitchfork. Now, if that happens to be, let me draw the very top of this market, draw this across. It happens to be about, well, it's actually going to intersect here. So that would actually say that the bond prices are going to make all-time highs. We're going to exceed this level that we exceeded back in March before things blew up. And it makes perfect sense when you think about what's going on in the economy. Okay, now this data, what could you do with this? Well, I think that if you watch this every day, and I hope our Market Mentor students would agree, you see this enough times, and before you know it, you start understanding it. And whether you know how to draw a pitchfork or not, and you would in our group, you know, actually, well, I'm not going to play around with this right now. You, I think, would gain the confidence in a conversation with a client to say, I think that rates are going to improve, but I don't think you want to get greedy. And there's other ways we would draw this pitchfork, and I do mean that, because I'm always showing people, you know, this went from 140 to 133 in about a minute. That was just a few trading days. And this really, really hurt a lot of people, a lot of unlocked loans, et cetera. And as we know, that can happen at any time. And in fact, maybe when we come up and test this high here, which we're getting close to, we may get a bounce off. So I feel like when you're talking to a referral partner, or you're talking to a real estate or a borrower, and you're able to really speak intelligently about rates and how the stock market ties into the bond market, I think that people find that interesting. And I mentioned this last time I was on Mortgage Coach on this call. You know, in '89, I founded RPM Mortgage, and I had just come off Wall Street, literally off as a bond guy. And so the first thing I had to have was a Telerate screen. They were so expensive. Back then, they were like $2,500 a month for the Telerate screen. And it was just like a DOS-based little green dots. You know, it didn't look like this, I'll tell you that much. And we trained our loan officers that they would meet the borrower in the lobby, you know, old school. By the way, we always had a book of every single, we sent a customer survey to every single loan we ever closed, and we put those in a book. And the borrowers and our receptionists would seat the borrower and offer them coffee and say, by the way, there's a book full of our surveys, unfiltered, by date. You know, if you want to flip through them, you'll get a good idea. And so the borrower is kind of flipping through this while he's waiting, and he's super impressed. And then the loan officer meets him, walks them directly to the Telerate screen. It's the first place they went. And they said, let me show you how we watch interest rates and how we try to guide you in terms of when's the best time to lock, when's the best time to refinance. Because it's not always about a lock float discussion. In fact, it shouldn't be about a lock float discussion most of the time. It should be about a basic sales call about what you're doing and how you're helping customers and how you've got their back, and how you'll sort of know a very good idea a few months before rates get really good, and then maybe you can get the app started. However you want to drive that information. And I used to love it because I'd sit in my office and I'd watch the LOs walk the buyer to the Telerate screen, and they'd be like, wow, that is really cool. Did they really understand it? Not so much, but what they understood was that we understood it. And you know, there's a saying, people very rarely remember what you tell them, but they remember how you made them feel. And that experience made them feel comfortable with my loan officers. So, and this is going back 30 years, and now the data is so much better and so fine. We probably don't meet people in our office like we used to, but we sure as heck ought to be meeting them on Zoom. You really need to be doing that. You need to be setting up every single loan appointment on a Zoom call with a screen just like this in front of borrowers. And by the way, this is tradingview.com. You can get a free membership, and I can teach you every single aspect, of this charting. So the takeaway here is, as the S&P began falling, we were very confident that the bonds would continue to rise. And as we believe the S&P will meet the middle of the pitchfork, that means bonds will probably meet the middle of the pitchfork as well. So we remain highly bullish on bonds. A little nervous about the economy. I want to share with you a couple of things. I do not want to turn this into a COVID discussion, but COVID it's worth mentioning. And COVID sadly has become a very political issue. And I'm actually, people have tried to fight with me on Facebook, and it's just not something I really want to do, because, and I always tell people, there's actually a difference between opinion and fact, and I sort of understand that, and I wish everybody else did. How did I end up down here? You know what, I'm gonna turn off my camera if you don't mind. Yeah, I'll just give us a little more room, a little more screen. So again, I spent 30 seconds on this. I get this data, and I actually feed this data into the charting system I just showed you, and I graph it every day. And I graph week over week, month over month, all that stuff. And so I believe that I am a source for unfiltered, unpolitical, non-press related COVID data. This does not come from the media. This is fed into a system from all the testing centers. And what you can see here is we're not going in the right direction. We were going in the right direction for a very long time, very long time. And you can see cases per day by state. Look at the jump in Arizona, you guys. It's frightening. Arkansas, frightening. Alabama, frightening. North Carolina, New Hampshire. Is that New Hampshire? Nebraska, sorry. South Carolina, Utah, Texas. They're actually talking about maybe, I need to talk to Alan. We got a couple members in option trading and in market mentors. They're actually talking about, now this is media driven, so I don't know if it's true, having to tighten back down Houston. It's just, it's not good. So we've gone from 62 to 67 as we've reopened the economy. Now, because I'm a big cycle fan, and I'm gonna give you a couple reasons why I'm a big cycle fan of Andrew Pincelli, I believe, based on the cycles, that COVID's not over. We are in a, do you know that there's a pandemic every 100 years and we're in one? Do you know there's a disease cycle every 18.7 years? Do you know there's a fear cycle every 20 years? There is a cycle for just about everything. And when I'm saying this, I'm going back 400 years. And I can prove that. This was written by Andrew in March. Now keep in mind, we're talking about, in this case, a 60-year cycle, which relates to a 180-year cycle. And on top of that, there's a 400-year cycle that's occurred every 100 years, having to do with social unrest and racial tensions. 400 years ago, this started when a boat full of slaves came to America. It was a horrible, long story. And many died, but that's the first time this boat got to America. They were hungry, they were tired, and they traded human souls for food. And that's when slavery was introduced 400 years ago. And every 100 years, there's been some kind of an uprising, rightfully so. We just hit a 60-year cycle. 60 years ago, Martin Luther King was arrested, and it caused this huge social unrest. Andrew said in March, something bad was coming with relating to social unrest and civil rights. I want you to get that in your mind for a minute. This was 3 months before what's happening happened. And this guy has impressed me in this way so many times. So when he tells me something's coming and he's got 400 years of data proving it to me, I sort of believe it. China's another example. We are in a massive amount of Chinese cycles all coming together. Many, many cycles. And the bottom line here is matters will escalate. June's a critical month for geopolitical tension. We expect a peak around the change of the season on 21st of June, but there's a lot more to this. So all of this is going to lead to economic challenges. COVID's going to lead to economic challenges. Just a couple little tiny things. Now, by the way, these are things that I share every single day with my market mentor group. These images will be posted. So who cares about Caterpillar? You know, not caterpillars that turn into butterflies, but Caterpillar, you know, they make tractors and cranes, and Caterpillar is actually a proxy for the economy. And if you go back and you watch, when the economy gets in trouble, Caterpillar takes a big fat dive. So directly correlated, it's ridiculous. Here's Caterpillar from 08 to 09. Look what happened to their sales. Their sales fell before the entire market crashed, just so you know. Then things got really good, and we ran into kind of this spot where we really couldn't grow much. And then things got a little bit better. And this is when I started freaking out, and I started calling the top of the stock market, because manufacturing numbers were just going down, down, down. And so we knew that we couldn't really have a strong economy without manufacturing. Caterpillar started falling apart. And by the way, a lot of this red was well before the COVID shutdown of the economy. So we sort of had advanced news what was going on. Their stock, you can see it fell so hard, it was ridiculous. And then it just came up, it fell back down again, it tried again, and now we sort of know it's probably coming back down to here. So these are the kinds of things we watch. These are the kinds of things I'm hoping that you're nodding your head and going, wow, that actually makes sense. Wow, that cycle stuff actually makes sense. And so if you are, and you're thinking that even a little bit, so are your clients. And when you have this knowledge, then you can really, make your clients understand that you are watching things and you do have their back. Next, this is Europe. Why don't I care about Europe? Well, you got to care about Europe because we are a global economy. There are times I wish we weren't. I wish we'd made all of our stuff here. I'd love to. I used to be a fan of globalization. Now I'm so anti-globalization, it's ridiculous. Because again, who's our #1 trading partner? Not our friend, China. Europe is a friend. And as Europe goes, so goes the US. As US goes, so go Europe. And I just got a glimpse of their month-over-month numbers for manufacturing, food products, textiles, wearing apparel. This is month-over-month for this month. So we're talking about this V-shaped recovery in the economy. Well, how's that even possible when we're still seeing these horrible red numbers right now? I do believe the economy is at bottom. That's the real good news. The crude example I gave our market mentor members. I was at the top of the staircase, loving life. I was in the ballroom having a party. And then somebody, flicked me on my forehead and knocked me down 25 flights of stairs. I bumped my head at the bottom. I got knocked out and I'm bleeding. Yuck, gross. I know, sorry. I managed to get up. I'm blurry-eyed. And I'm thinking, I'm a partier, man. I just want to get back up to that party. I think I'm going to be okay. I'll get some tape on my head. Life's good. And I crawl up 3 stairs. That's where the economy is right now. It was knocked out. It was concussed. It's blurry. It's made it up 3 stairs. The party is 22 flights above. And I can barely move because I've got this big old concussion and I'm dizzy. So yeah, we're going to see economic numbers that are going to look better and better, and that's good. But all that is one step back to the ballroom. And that staircase, by Powell's own words, Chairman Powell, they're going to keep 0 interest rates up until and possibly through 2022. Why would they keep 0 interest rates up to 2022 if we're going to have this V-shaped recovery and the economy is going to go, woohoo? He wouldn't do it. So that lends to my forecast that mortgage rates are going to stay incredibly low. And not to pat myself on the back, guys, but when everything went to hell, I told you this was temporary. I told you we would see fixed rate loans in the 2s. It's happening now. And I'm telling you now, we're going to see fixed rates in the very low 2s. Is that going to happen tomorrow or the next day? No, it could take a little bit of time. Is it going to happen for good reasons? No, it's not happening for good reasons. However, all this said, I'm actually a huge fan of housing. Not because I'm in it, not because I need it, but because I believe that this is the first time I've ever said this. Housing is going to outpace the general economy by a long shot. And that doesn't normally happen. Normally, housing leads us into a recession and it leads us out. This time, housing is probably going to keep us from going too much deeper. There's too much pent-up demand. People are too frustrated with rent increases. You've seen it. The economy shut down. And again, I share these things every day with our group. All the housing numbers are just beautiful. They just keep getting better and better because sellers know that it's okay. And when things froze, they pulled their homes off the market. Where in 08, people knew it wasn't going to be okay. And they just dropped prices. Also, borrowers have one of the biggest equity cushions they've ever had. There's a reason for them to hang on to their homes. They're not going to dump houses. It's the dumping of houses that created the prices. So I'm constantly telling people to tell borrowers, if you're waiting for a big dip, you're making a big mistake. because even if there is a dip, fine, wait, buy that dip. Problem is, at that point, the economy's already turned around. Rates are already on their way up. And you guys know 1 year ago, rates were 4 3/4. Think about that. So you want to wait, get out of the better housing price and pay a 4% rate instead of a 2% rate? That math never works. And I love Mortgage Coach for that, because you can do, you know, cost of waiting analysis. I did one for the group. I think the last call I was on, I didn't do a good one because I haven't used Mortgage Coach much for a long time. All right, one more thing I want to show you on cycles, and then we'll do some Q&A, and then if Dave will let me, I'm just going to pitch Market Mentor just a tiny bit. So this is the euro, all right? Now, this is a histogram, and this histogram has every single event that's ever happened in history. Honestly, every single thing. If you saw this wall that Andrew has, it's a piece of paper about 40 feet long, and it's got every single event timelined in history. All that data was fed into a computer. And when something of any event happens, these little histogram guys pop their heads up. So just a couple examples. Can't quite see the date here, but I think this was 05. Big fat histogram, run it up, it called the bottom of the market. Histograms do a really good job of calling tops and bottoms. Here's histograms pop their head up, called the top, histogram called the top, next histogram called the bottom. And so look at this one. Something very big is coming now between the euro and the USD. I'm going to be doing a pitchfork on this currency. These are called pairs, the USD euro pair, and there's probably a good play here. But look, there's more. These histograms are not done in the past, they're done into the future. So this is telling me something's coming later this year, and then 2021, there's more stuff happening. So imagine having every event, whether it's gold, currency, stocks, interest rates, kind of loaded into a histogram. You really do start having a little bit of an eyesight into the future. And I think that to the extent that I've been right a fair amount, it's because I've always been a cycles guy, and cycles always come true. A little bit over time. Sorry, Dave.
No, don't be sorry. You crushed it, guys. If you have questions for Dan, put them down below. Dan, why don't you jump back on camera? And dude, I want everybody in the Mortgage Coach community that wants to be, you got to want to be a market mentor, but I want you to be the most successful, the most valuable loan officer to families and realtors you could possibly be. And you can be valuable, but you can't be the most value without delivering a total cost analysis and without being a market mentor. So Dan, let people know if they want to, go deeper with you and be a market mentor to realtors and families. How do they do that?
Okay, I got a little. I didn't get to finish the slide, guys. So I'm sorry to say it was so rushed and somewhat disorganized. I really did not plan my time well. And then, the markets have not helped me. It's when the markets get this crazy, it's hard to do everything in the mornings. So Market Mentor, the whole idea behind it was what I noticed at some point through Rawitch, thanks to Dave, is that, and I find it incredibly, I feel it's a blessing, it's rewarding, it's flattering, and it's funny. And the funny part is that there's actually people that put me on a pedestal, and I just can't tell you how funny that is. And, Dave knows me well. People who know me well know that I'm just a dude. I fall on my face. I make mistakes. I have all kinds of issues. I am a socially imperfect, not socially, I'm a human being that's imperfect. So being on a pedestal is kind of a funny place to be. Why do people put me there? They put me there because they have looked to me for information for many years, some only months. Some of you guys have only known me for months, and you've put me on that pedestal. And I don't take that lightly. And it never ever will go to my head, because I think it's funny, because I shouldn't be on a pedestal. But you put me there, and you put me there because you've learned to trust me and depend on me and hear from me. So you get this almost micro celebrity status. Todd is a celebrity, You barely knew Todd. If you ran into Todd, see, look at, he's just like me. Come on.
I'm laughing back here. Thanks, Dan.
But it's true, Todd. If you run into people at a conference, they're going to go, dude, I followed you. You're so awesome. And you are, and it's true. But people, they will put us up and Todd and Dave belong there. I don't. And so why wouldn't you want to be that for your database, for your referral partners? why don't you let me teach you how to convey that information in a way that puts you in that pedestal where you can start doing weekly Zoom calls, talking about economic updates. And by the way, I make this offer to all of our members. You put together a group anytime, any day, as long as our times can coordinate, I'm on a Zoom call with you and your referral sources. I love doing this stuff. I wish I got paid by the word. I'd be so rich. So 2 live daily updates. We do that in a private Facebook membership page. I do them at 9 a.m. I do them right after the close, about 1:15. We talk about what I see coming that day, and then we talk about what I saw happen that day and what I think we should expect for tomorrow. It's sort of like take the daily rate watch and put it on steroids, and then open it to questions, as many as you want to ask me. You get the Rate Watch app. If you're a Mortgage Coach user, I get it. You have that free anyway. But if you're a Market Mentor member, thanks to Dave, which is really amazingly kind offer, we're able to offer the Rate Watch app to our Mortgage Mentor members. And if you're not using that Rate Watch app, guys, I'm telling you, the data on that in that little application is so powerful. Live daily updates on rates. I can tell you what every single lender is charging, what their rate is across every lender in Optimal Blue. I know the average rate. I know the average rate by FICO, by LTV. I can show a borrower when he says to me, well, why'd they quote me 6 1/8? Or sorry, 2 1/8, and you're quoting me 2 1/2. Say, well, your FICO is 660, and if you can see here, the average rate for a 660 FICO is here. I quoted you pretty good. This guy probably didn't even have the brains to ask you your FICO score. Did he run your credit before he gave you that rate? He did it? Oh my God, that's unconscionable. So the data is really powerful. Text alerts when rates move. You get detailed chart reading lessons. You got a slight glimpse of it a minute ago. Timely news articles and info that you can share with partners. I spend hours every day just reading. And what I find interesting and that will help you, might not just interesting to me, but interesting and that will help you share to your clients. That stuff's put in the live Facebook group. You get my weekly newsletter, Swamponomics, with Todd referred to. It's a labor of love, and I hate it every Sunday because I always procrastinate and I spend the whole day writing it. And my wife every Sunday says, can you just start this earlier so we can do something on Sundays? Yeah, next week. It's $288 a year, but it's included. We have an ongoing chat room. So I'm there. You ask a question, I'm there. And then, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I'm constantly looking at charts and opportunities, and I'm saying, you know, this actually looks really good if you wanted to jump on that. And the cost for this, I hate to sound like an infomercial guy because you don't get a Ginzu knife, $17 a month. And I just wanted to make the price point so cheap that it was affordable for everybody, and you would just have it. And I think for $17 a month, the newsletter alone is, you know, almost double that. So that's the pitch. Hope I didn't go too long, and I just want to share that with you. I can put a link wherever you want, Dave, if anybody's interested.
Yeah, no, people have already asked for it, Dan. So if you could put a link in chat, let's stop sharing your screen and let's wrap this up. So guys, we are just huge fans of Dan Rawitch. As you know, he's done an update in the mortgage coach community for over 10 years. And now he's got this elite community. If you want to be the most valuable mortgage professional, you can become part of that community for a low price. Dan put a link down below. Highly recommend it. So a couple things, you know, I had a takeaway just listening to Dan and thinking to myself, the more we can connect mortgage advice to things that people are watching and paying attention to, the better. And so you notice he talked about the stock market. And, you know, while as a mortgage professional, you don't necessarily, you know, give stock advice, but the more you know about that, the more that's a great way to transition to talking about rates and talking about the market. It's also a great way that when you're helping families reconfigure their life, everybody is thinking about, you know, do I want to keep living in the house that I'm in? Do I need a bigger home office? Do I need a better kitchen? Do I want a different view? So guys, if you're not doing this already, you should be partnering with realtors to do Zoom events and Facebook Live events to help families make informed decisions about reconfiguring their life. And the total cost analysis is a part of that. Dan Rawitch and Market Mentor is a part of that. And then of course, if you just want to execute and actually do what you say you're going to do and do what you want to do, you need to be on the Win by Noon team. So, you know, you've got all this value in this community. I hope we delivered value. Todd, any closing thoughts before we wrap up this call?
My closing thoughts are, Dave, you kicked it off great. I think that, the advice that you gave to be the truly best, most valuable partner and loan officer was spot on. And I think most of us in the mortgage business want to be smart. We want to understand the stock market, and we want to be able to provide value, but we don't have time for it. Dan has given you the easy button to look way smarter than any of us are, because he is so smart and super nerdy about this stuff. And so I love the fact that he's going to be figuring out pitchforks and all these other crazy things that, now I know enough to be dangerous about. However, I'm going to still let him give the advice. I'm going to let him do the research so that I can share it with others and I can look brilliant. So thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate the kind words.
All right, guys, if you got value from this call, give us a like down below, share it with your mortgage friends. We look forward to seeing you on next Tuesday's interview, 9:00 Pacific. And thank you for being an active member of this mortgage community. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
See y'all.
Wait. Bye, guys.
Later. Thank you, Dan.